Welcome back, everybody, to the deep dive. This time, we're going to be tackling campaign budget optimization on Facebook. CBO, you've probably heard of it.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe even tested it out a little bit, but we are going to try to understand what's really going on under the hood
Absolutely.
and maybe help you unlock some serious advertising superpowers.
Yeah. We're going to be diving deep into your research on CBO, looking at everything from the basic definition all the way through to some of the potential pitfalls and even, some more advanced tactics that you might be able to implement.
So let's kick things off with a nice, clear definition. What is CBO?
Yeah. So at its core, CBO is all about automation. So instead of manually setting budgets for each individual ad set
Right.
within your campaign, you set a budget at the campaign level and let Facebook's algorithm decide how to distribute that budget across your ad sets.
So it's almost like having like a little mini captain of your ship,
Exactly.
or captain of your fleet.
A little AI captain that's steering your ad dollars towards the best performing opportunities.
Yeah. Okay, so that sounds great in theory, but how does it actually work, like, in practice? What's going on behind the scenes?
So behind the scenes, it all comes down to machine learning. So Facebook's algorithms constantly analyzing vast amounts of data about your target audience, your ad creatives, and the overall performance of your campaign.
Okay.
And then it's using this data to identify the ad sets that are most likely to achieve your desired results.
Okay.
So whether that's driving website traffic, generating leads, or boosting brand awareness.
So it's not just like randomly like throwing money at things.
No, it's very data-driven.
It's actually like making like decisions.
Data-driven decisions.
Yeah. So that brings up a really important question, which is, what about the data itself?
Yeah.
I mean, does this mean that CBO only works for campaigns that already have like a ton of data?
That's a really good question, and it's something that a lot of advertisers actually get tripped up on.
Right.
So you absolutely need data for CBO to work its magic.
Mhm.
But it doesn't have to be mountains and mountains of data.
Yeah.
What's important is that you have your Facebook pixel properly installed and tracking the right conversions for your campaign goals.
Gotcha.
So think of the pixel as a tiny detective,
Yeah,
right?
I like that.
Collecting all the clues about how people are interacting with your ads, and
Oh, okay.
the more clues that it gathers, the smarter CBO becomes.
So even if you are a newer advertiser or you're just starting out with CBO, like it's really crucial to have that pixel set up from day one.
Absolutely. It's like laying the foundation for a house.
Okay.
You want to make sure it's solid from the start,
Yeah.
so then CBO can build upon it effectively.
Okay, very cool. And one of the things that you talk about in your research and that we talk about a lot is the ability of CBO to prevent your ads from actually competing against each other.
Yes.
What does that mean?
Yeah, so it's all about audience overlap.
Yeah.
So imagine you have multiple ad sets targeting slightly different segments of your audience.
Mm.
Without CBO, there's a chance you'll end up bidding against yourself, essentially driving up the costs of your own ads.
Oh, wow.
Right. So CBO steps in and it deduplicates your audience, ensuring that each person sees the most relevant ad without unnecessary repetition.
So you're not wasting ad dollars on showing the same ad to the same person over and over again.
Exactly.
Exactly. So it's ensuring that, your marketing message is reaching different neighborhoods instead of everybody getting 5 copies of the same flyer.
Yes, exactly. Avoiding that wasted spend.
Okay, cool. So, I mean, that sounds impressive, but it also makes me wonder, like, if the algorithm is making all these decisions, does that mean I just like set it and forget it? Or can I even adjust things once a CBO campaign is running?
So you definitely don't want to just set it and forget it. While CBO does automate a lot of the heavy lifting, it's still important to monitor performance and make adjustments strategically.
Okay.
So, remember that the algorithm is constantly learning, and sometimes, it needs a little guidance, right?
Yeah.
One thing to keep in mind is what's called the learning phase. So this is a period when the algorithm is gathering data and figuring out the best way to optimize your budget. And it's best to avoid making major changes during this phase, as it can actually disrupt the learning process.
So it's like you're trying to like bake a cake and you keep like opening the oven door,
Exactly.
and adjusting the temperature. You're never going to.
Exactly. You're going to end up with a mess.
Yeah. Okay, so patience is key here. Like you have to
Patience and trust.
trust.
A little bit of trust in the algorithm.
Okay, just like with the learning phase, you gotta give it some time to work its magic.
Exactly.
Okay, that makes sense. So it's a partnership. It's like you and the algorithm working together.
Exactly. You provide the data and the overall strategy, and CBO helps you execute it with maximum efficiency.
Okay, this is starting to sound really powerful.
It is.
But are there any, like, potential downsides? I mean, nothing's perfect, right?
You're absolutely right. No system is perfect. And while CBO offers some incredible benefits, um, there are some potential pitfalls to watch out for.
Okay.
One of the most common mistakes that we see is setting an insufficient budget.
Oh, okay. That makes sense, right? Like, you need to give it enough kind of fuel to work its magic. But how do you know it's sufficient? Like, is there a rule of thumb?
Yeah, unfortunately, there's no one-size-fits-all answer.
Yeah.
The ideal budget's going to depend on factors like your campaign goals, your target audience size, and also the competitiveness of your industry.
Right.
But a good starting point is to allocate enough budget to allow for meaningful testing across your ad sets. So remember, CBO needs room to explore different options and gather enough data to make those informed decisions.
So it's about striking that balance,
Right,
right?
exactly.
Between giving it enough resources to learn and not breaking the bank in the process.
Exactly. And this brings us to another common pitfall, and this is over-tweaking.
Oh,
So I see advertisers constantly adjusting bids, targeting creatives within their CBO campaigns, thinking they're helping the algorithm, when in reality, they're often doing more harm than good.
right, right. Because, I mean, if you're constantly changing things, then the algorithm can never, like, settle into a groove and figure out, like, you know what that winning combination is.
Exactly. It's like trying to solve a puzzle by constantly rearranging the pieces before you even had a chance to see the bigger picture.
Yeah.
So give the algorithm some space to breathe, let it do its analysis, and then make adjustments based on the data it provides.
Gotcha, gotcha. So patience and trust are key here.
Absolutely.
Just like with that learning phase, it seems to be a recurring theme.
It is. It is. So let's shift gears a bit and talk about some best practices for using CBO effectively.
Mm.
And one strategy that really came out in the research was the importance of testing multiple ad placements,
Okay.
right? Because different placements reach different audiences in different contexts.
Totally. I mean, you think about it. Somebody scrolling through their Facebook feed is in a very different mindset than someone who's watching a story on Instagram.
Exactly. Exactly. So CBO allows you to experiment with various placements and see which ones resonate best with your target audience.
Okay.
And then it can optimize your budget to deliver your ads in the environments where they're most likely to perform well.
So it's kind of like casting a wider net to see where the fish are biting,
Perfect analogy.
and then focusing your efforts on the most kind of productive fishing spots.
Exactly. And another crucial tip, and this is when setting up your CBO campaign, make sure to add each audience only once,
Okay.
right? This might seem obvious, but it's a common mistake.
Right.
That can lead to audience overlap and wasted spend.
Right. So you're making sure that your targeting is really streamlined, right?
Yeah.
And that each segment is being addressed in a clear, concise way.
Exactly. You want to avoid having multiple ad sets competing for the same eyeballs.
Gotcha. So it's like having different departments in your company all bidding against each other for the same resources?
Yes, exactly. Inefficient and can drive up costs.
Yeah, totally. So speaking of efficiency, I mean, one of the things that came up in the research as well was the importance of monitoring performance regularly. But I thought the whole point of CBO was to automate things.
It does. It automates a lot of the heavy lifting, but that doesn't mean you can just set it and forget it.
Mm-hmm.
Regular monitoring is still crucial to ensure that things are moving in the right direction and to identify any potential issues early on.
Okay.
Think of it like having a compass to guide you through kind of the ever-changing landscape of the Facebook advertising ecosystem.
So even with CBO, at the helm, so to speak,
Yes.
you still need to be an active captain, keeping an eye on the map and making sure that, course corrections as needed.
Exactly. Now, before we wrap up this section, I want to address something we kind of touched on a little bit earlier, and this is the danger of conflating CBO with your overall advertising strategy.
Right. It's easy to get really excited about a new tool, right?
Yes, absolutely.
And to forget about the bigger picture.
Exactly. CBO is a powerful tool, no doubt, but it's just one piece of the puzzle.
Right.
It's not a substitute for having a clear understanding of your target audience,
Yeah.
for developing compelling ad creatives and crafting a cohesive marketing message. Think of it this way. CBO is like having a state-of-the-art oven.
Okay.
But if you don't have a good recipe and quality ingredients, you're not going to bake a delicious cake no matter how fancy your oven is.
Right. It's all about using it strategically as part of, a larger, well-thought-out marketing plan. So it's not a magic bullet, but it can definitely help you, hit your targets more efficiently.
Absolutely.
Now, for those listeners who might be thinking, okay, this CBO thing sounds interesting, but I'm not sure if it's right for me, what advice would you give them?
I'd say CBO can be a really valuable asset for any advertiser, whether they're just starting out or if they've been running campaigns for years. The key is to approach it strategically and to be willing to experiment and learn.
So it's not a one-size-fits-all solution. It's really more of a tool that
Exactly.
can be adapted to kind of different needs and goals.
Exactly. And if you're feeling overwhelmed or unsure where to start, there are tons of resources available online and through Facebook's support channels. Don't be afraid to reach out for help and guidance.
Yeah, sometimes the best way to learn is to, ask for help.
Absolutely.
Talk to people who've, kind of navigated those waters already. So, okay, we've covered a lot of ground today. Everything from like the kind of mechanics of CBO
Yeah.
to strategies for, making it really hum. But let's bring it all home. For listeners thinking, okay, this is cool, but like how does this actually play out in the real world? What are some examples of how CBO can help achieve specific advertising goals?
Okay, so let's say, for example, your goal is to drive traffic to your website.
Yeah.
With CBO, you could set up a campaign with multiple ad sets, each targeting a different segment of your audience. And the algorithm will automatically test these audiences and shift budget towards the ones that are most effectively driving clicks to your site.
So it's almost like A/B testing, but
On autopilot.
on autopilot. Yeah. So you're letting the system kind of figure out which combination of audience, ad, creative, placement is really going to like reel in those website visitors.
Exactly, and it's
Yeah.
doing it very efficiently.
Yeah. That seems really power. And like how does that benefit advertisers? I mean, like,
Well, it takes the guesswork out of optimization.
right.
So instead of manually testing different variations and constantly adjusting bids, you're freeing up your time and mental energy to focus on other aspects of your business.
Right.
Plus, CBO can often uncover winning combinations that you might have overlooked if you were doing things manually.
Oh, interesting. So it's almost like you've got like a tireless marketing assistant who's working 24/7
That's right.
to find these like little kind of hidden gems.
Exactly.
What other real-world examples come to mind?
Sure. So let's say your goal is to generate leads, right? You could create a campaign with different ad sets, each showcasing a different lead magnet.
Yeah.
So that could be like a free ebook or a webinar registration.
Right.
CBO would then optimize your budget to deliver those lead magnets to the people most likely to convert.
So instead of me, like sitting there and trying to guess which lead magnet is going to resonate with which audience, you're basically letting CBO crunch the numbers.
Exactly.
And then put the budget behind the winners. And what's so fascinating about this is that like the algorithm is constantly learning and refining its approach, right?
Exactly. As the algorithm gathers more data about your audience and their behavior, it becomes better and better at optimizing your campaigns over time.
So we talked a lot about data, but I want to circle back to that for a minute because it seems like that's really kind of like the heart of what makes CBO work. Can you remind us why that is?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Data is the fuel that powers the CBO engine.
Okay.
Without enough data, the algorithm is essentially flying blind.
Yeah.
And that's why it's so important to ensure that you have your Facebook pixel properly installed, tracking the conversions that matter most for your business goals.
Right. It's like we were talking earlier about it being like a detective, right? Gathering those clues. It's the information from that detective that helps CBO kind of make those smart decisions about where to allocate your budget.
Exactly.
Okay, cool. But how much data is enough? Like what kind of like time frame are we talking about before CBO really starts to like shine?
Yeah. So it really depends on a few factors, like the size of your budget, the complexity of your campaigns, and the amount of traffic you're driving. But generally speaking, you should start to see some noticeable improvements within a few weeks, and the optimization will continue to improve over time as more data is collected.
So it's not an instant fix. It's an investment.
It's an
So
investment.
that can pay off, big time in the long run.
Exactly.
Okay, cool. Any other kind of final pearls of wisdom that you want to leave our listeners with?
Yeah, one final thought I want to leave you with is that CBO is constantly evolving.
Right.
Facebook is always making updates and improvements. So it's important to stay up to date on the latest best practices and features.
It's like anything else in digital marketing, right? You got
To
to
stay nimble.
stay nimble, adapt. Well, I think we've officially reached the bottom of our deep dive on campaign budget optimization. We covered a lot of ground today, but hopefully you're walking away feeling a little bit more informed and empowered to leverage the power of CBO in your own Facebook campaigns.
And remember, CBO is just one tool in your marketing toolbox.
Right.
The key is to use it strategically in conjunction with other tactics and a solid understanding of your target audience.
So true. As we always say here on the deep dive, knowledge is power.
Absolutely.
But it's the application of that knowledge that really makes the difference. So go forth, fellow marketers, experiment with CBO, and let the data guide your way to advertising success.
And if you ever find yourself feeling lost or overwhelmed,
Mm.
just remember you can always revisit our deep dive or dive into those sources yourself for a refresher.
Exactly. And who knows, maybe in the future we'll do another deep dive as Facebook continues to evolve this really powerful tool. Until then, happy optimizing, everyone.